Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Ryan sent me an interesting story out of California involving cars and a dealership. Sad story. More than 70 premium cars stolen from a dealership amid looting in Northern California. Fox News Television, Fox 2 out of Oakland reported the story. Bree Stimson wrote it. But police in Northern California are searching for suspects and cars after rioters reportedly stole more than 70 of them from a dealership near San Francisco the other night. San Leandro Chrysler Dodge Jeep owner Carlos Hidalgo said that although he blocked the exits as a precaution, the thieves started ramming until they could get out. They took out chains and fence posts. It was a very malicious act. So he locked the dealership up, thought it was secure, but people came onto the property, grabbed cars, and then smashed their way out, probably damaging the cars in the process. He said, you walk in and it's like a war zone. It's not a cause for anybody. This is just bad thieves. It's horrible. This is domestic terrorism brought upon to people that work. That's not right. He said he called police, but they were too busy to respond to the dealership that night. They had more important things to deal with. Looters separated themselves from peaceful protesters who were in the Bay Area Sunday after hitting a Nike clearance store across the street from the dealership. And many people have pointed this out, that there's two different groups of people out there. There's people who are looting and there's people who are protesting. A lot of the looters go out and mingle with the protesters until nightfall, and then they break off and start doing what they do. And so it's one of the most striking comparisons I've seen. And I do hope that you do some research on your own of this. Don't just watch a single channel on television. Don't just watch a couple channels that all agree. Poke around yourself on the internet, for instance. You can find this stuff on YouTube. You can find examples of extremely peaceful protests. And I'll point to my backyard. I mentioned I'm in southeastern Michigan, just north of Detroit is a town called Flint. Flint used to be a huge center of General Motors. Although GM's world headquarters is in Detroit, they had many, many facilities in and around Flint. And in Flint, it's Genesee County. And a couple days ago, there was a protest that people had said, we're all going to meet at this place and we're going to march down the street. And a lot of people showed up, including the Genesee County Sheriff. The Genesee County Sheriff stood up and not wearing a helmet, not carrying a baton, and he stood up and he goes, I want everyone here to understand something. He goes, I'm a police officer. I'm here with police officers. And we agree with you that you've got something to protest about with what happened in Minnesota. We disagree with the actions that happened in Minnesota. So if you don't mind, we would like to march with you. Okay? We're not here to stop you. You have the right to march. We agree with that. And in fact, we agree with you. So if you will allow us to join you, my men will put our helmets and our batons in our vehicles, and we'll simply come down and we'll march with you. What do you think about that? And the crowd started chanting, march with us, march with us. And I saw some clips of that made it onto national news. And that's seemed to me a good outcome. People marched, they were making a statement, and they were showing solidarity in their beliefs. And that's how you do it, people. And at that particular march, nothing bad happened. And yeah, there was a police presence, but it wasn't confrontational. And I'm not saying that all of these things that have happened in the news lately could have gone down like that, because some of these things got out of control before the police showed up. And so I'm simply pointing out that, and again, there is a distinction. There's people protesting and marching, and it is, I would say, your most inviolable right that you have from the Bill of Rights is your right to go out in the street, gather with like-minded people, and make your thoughts known. That is the most American thing that you have as a right, okay? It's the First Amendment. There's a reason I think it's number one. So I understand that. But the moment you put down the bullhorn, figuratively speaking, and pick up a rock, you are no longer marching peaceably. You are no longer speaking. If you throw that rock, it's now a whole different thing. So protesters, marchers, whatever you want to call them over here, looters and rioters over here. And you can be judged by your actions. You will be judged by your actions. So keep that in mind that we're talking about here is people here who are looting a car dealership had nothing to do with the protesters. They were opportunists. So looters separated themselves from peaceful protesters who were in the Bay Area. And then those looters hit the Nike clearance store across the street from the dealership. And then after they did that, they came across and broke into the showroom and found the key lockbox. And then, of course, the keys all have fobs on them. So you go out in the parking lot, you hit the fob, and you can find which car the key goes to. So nearly all of the dealership's Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcats were stolen. And some of those are worth $90,000 a piece. The thieves also stole Charger Hellcats, Jeep Wranglers, and pickup trucks. San Leandro Police Department Lieutenant Ted Henderson said he didn't know if it was an opportunistic crime or if it was planned. He said no arrests have been made, but police are searching social media video of the crime and looking for surveillance video in the area to identify suspects. And that, I guess, is one of the bright spots about social media and the world we live in. People film everything, including themselves committing crimes. So the events in Minneapolis have reopened old, raw wounds and forced us to confront societal injustices that need to be addressed, the chief wrote in a statement posted on the department's Facebook page. Those who peacefully protest have started that conversation, but those who have looted and stoked violence in our community are hurting that effort. And that's absolutely true. That's the problem. Peaceful protesters can actually move the ball down the field, as I like to say. The looters and the rioters don't. They actually move it backwards because it makes some people go, look at them, and they lump them together. Between 20 and 25 cars have been recovered, however, although some were damaged and others were chopped up for parts. The owner told Fox 2, as we're getting them back, I've got cars without engines. The dealership estimates it has lost $5 million in thefts and is going to have to hire armed guards for the near future. A nearby Walmart, See's Candies, Burlington Coat Factory, Subway, and Designer Shoe Warehouse were also looted Sunday night, according to the San Francisco Gate. So a lot of stuff happening. I tend to not watch network news on television. I got tired of it years ago. One of the biggest problems with television is they deliver stuff to you in such bite-sized chunks that you watch NBC Nightly News or CBS News or ABC News or Fox. I don't care what network it is. You watch any of the major network national news programs. Top of the hour, they got the biggest news story, and they summarize it in 30 seconds. And if you really wanted to dig into that news story, I don't care what it is. It'll take you more than 30 seconds. And so when you take a massive news story and summarize it into 30 seconds, you're invariably going to have to summarize it, leave things out, gloss things over, and kind of generalize things. And I mean, we've known this for years, but it got to the point where I'm watching the news, like I said a few years ago, I'm going, the news is more nuanced than what they're presenting here. It really bothers me. So I actually stopped watching network news. And I used to sit down at 6:30 and watch it. And now I have a few news sources that are bookmarked on my computer. And I spend a lot of time sitting at a desk. And during the day, during breaks, I will read the various news stories off of different news sites. And if I find something that catches my attention, I will read that same story on several different sites, including ones that I know are diametrically opposed when it comes to how they're slanted with respect to the news. We all know that there are some newspapers that are conservative, there are some that are liberal. So if you find a news story and you're reading it, it'll actually behoove you to go find it and read it in the other newspaper also. See what they agree upon. That stuff might be true. See what they disagree upon. And then ask yourself, is it a bias because of the disagreement, or are they looking at it different? What's going on there? And sometimes I'll read the local news. I'll read the national news. I'll read international news. There's a couple newspapers that I subscribe to that are from Europe and Australia. Okay? Just why not? It's interesting to see what other countries think of what's going on in America right now. Different perspective, So when you read these stories, like I said, I've had people contact me and ask me, why didn't you cover this? And they'll tell me a story, but the way they spin it so hard, I know that they've only read one version of it. They read that one version over here. And I'll say, well, I didn't really get into that for whatever reason, and I don't want to get into too much of a debate with them. But I do wish that more people, before you get upset by something that you see on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, look it up yourself. In the last 7 days, I've seen 3 or 4 posts I can remember that were posted on Facebook that I immediately spotted as a Snopes story. Absolutely untrue story. And I know people go, oh, Steve, Snopes isn't real news either. Except you can go down to the bottom of Snopes and see their sources, and you can double check their sources. So, people post these things and go, everybody got to watch out for this, and you look it up and it's not true. Whether you look it up on Snopes or elsewhere, I don't care where you look it up, it's not true. And so in the last 7 days, I've seen at least 4 and possibly 5 of those stories. And so I know people who just forward these things because they get upset. And I've actually seen somebody post something that was false. People said, that's not correct. That's a hoax, an urban legend. I've had them say, oh, I didn't realize that. And they left it up. And then people say, why don't you take it down? I don't know if it's true or not. If you don't know if it's true, why are you leaving it up? But I've gone far afield. I apologize. By the way, I got an email from somebody yesterday that said, Steve, your videos are too long. Stop going off topic. Sorry. I forgot the man's name. I'd apologize to him by name. Again, more than 70 premium cars were stolen from dealerships amid looting in Northern California. But please don't lump all the protesters and marchers in the same group as the looters and rioters. They are 2 different groups. And once you do that in your mind, it makes a little more sense. Questions, comments, put them below. Others, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Quick, you've got to hide me from PBS. Their bloodthirsty pursuit is made possible by a grant from the Chubb Group.